Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hi, everybody. It's Thursday, April 23rd, 2026. And don't adjust that dial. I'm Tiffany Cross, sitting in for Roland Martin. And here's what's coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. They say Virginia is for lovers, but it seems like Virginia is for haters. A Virginia judge has blocked the certification of the recent redistricting vote, halting changes to congressional maps just one day after voters approved the Democrat-drawn plan. Attorney General Jay Jones will join us to explain his plan to appeal. That's coming up at the top of the show. Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries called out Republicans for failing to pass the bipartisan Department of Homeland Security bill, and a Black law student who was disciplined after making comments about Charlie Kirk's murder is suing, claiming her punishment betrays Kirk's legacy. Clever girl. We will continue to address domestic violence by exploring some issues that may contribute to tragedies, but also just getting into a conversation about therapy. Tonight, we'll identify stressors that could lead to really bad behavior or maybe even violent relationships. Black Star Network's Brittany Noble will also share her personal story of domestic abuse. And get your swipe card ready, because in tonight's Shop Black Star Network segment, what started as a college project is now introducing flavors from the South American country of Guyana. I do not want my waistline to know anything about that. Also, straight out of Chi-Town, Grammy award-winning poet Jay Ivey will be in the studio to join me. It's Grammys on the Hill this week, so I thought I would bring in somebody from the Windy City. And finally, I got some thoughts about this year's annual White House Correspondents' Dinner. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
All right, let's get to some serious business. A Virginia State Court judge blocked the statement, Virginia State Court judge halted certification of a redistricting vote for Democrats' efforts to redraw the state's congressional maps, and it's tilted as many as 4 House districts away from the GOP. The order from Judge Jack Hurley of Tazewell County Circuit Court contends that all votes for and against Tuesday's referendum are ineffective and bars state officials from certifying the results or taking any action to put the new maps passed by state lawmakers into effect. Virginia Attorney General Jay Jones says he's going to appeal the ruling, and he joins me now. Mr. Attorney General, I'm a little confused. Can you explain to Roland Martin's viewers tonight, how is it possible that a judge can overrule the will of the people?
Well, that's certainly the question that we're seeking to answer as well, and it's why my office immediately appealed the ruling, and we are fighting this in court because, as you know, the right to vote is sacred. It's what makes us special, not just as Virginians, but as Americans. And we will always fight to protect the right to vote here in Virginia and across this country. Millions of people came out to vote earlier this week, both voting for and against the referendum, and yes carried the day. And it's my job to enforce the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And the will of the people of this state is that yes prevailed and that we will redraw these congressional districts. And my office will fight that in court to make sure that we are moving forward as the people of Virginia have asked us to do.
Now, what is the consequence if this judge is, hard-lined on this, and if there is another defeat? What is the consequence of when judges like this really try to overthrow what people voted for?
Well, it certainly, I think, would undermine some faith in elections and in our institutions. But I'm really, proud of the fact that we moved quickly, got into court, appealed this, and my expectation is that the Supreme Court of Virginia will rule on this. There are several matters that they will be addressing next week, but I think at the end of the day, the will of the people here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, again, millions of people came out to vote over 45 days of early vote to demonstrate that they care about and want to participate in the civic process. And that's what we want from people here in this Commonwealth, but across the United States. And so, we want to make sure that people have their right to vote protected, that their voice matters, and that their vote will mean something. And that's what this is all about, whether it be sending folks to Washington to represent them in Congress, or for your school board elections, your circuit court, your city council elections, boards of supervisors, what have you. When people go to vote, their vote should mean something, and they should know that there shouldn't be any fear or threat of that being undermined after the fact.
I'll be honest, it feels like a preview or even a look back into recent history when one party that's now really just full of MAGA extremists will not accept election results, election outcomes that they don't like. So let me ask you this, because obviously you represent the Commonwealth, Virginia, but if I'm watching this in Brooklyn, New York, or Birmingham, Alabama, why should I care about this particular congressional map in Virginia?
Well, we should care about every single congressional map across the country. And, look, Democrats have had significant success here in Virginia last year when we won our 3 statewide offices and expanded our majority in our House of Delegates, which was a tremendous and historic moment. But this is the moment when people are looking to see how they can make their voices heard and have an impact. And so making sure that they get out and vote is obviously one of the most important things. And, to have the right people in the positions to defend democracy, to make sure that our voices are protected, our freedoms are protected, is critically important. It's why this role as Attorney General was always so, pivotal for us from an electoral standpoint. And it's why going forward, we need more folks in AG seats who are going to make sure that they're going to protect the rule of law and protect people's voices and protect our democratic values. And that's democratic values with a little d, not a big D. Because again, the Constitution applies to every single one of us. And it's my job and other attorneys general's jobs across the country to enforce the laws, to make sure that we're upholding the expectations and norms and standards and rules that everybody expects us to. And so that's what we're going to do. We have a very talented team in my office. And I look forward to, having our day in court and making sure that we're advancing the arguments that reflect the will of the majority of people here in Virginia. Because again, millions of people showed up, whether for or against, and yes, carried the day. And it's my job to make sure that we take that all the way to the end, because that's what the majority of people here in Virginia wanted.
Yeah, and attorneys generals across the country certainly have an outsized power. I mean, if you look at what some of the attacks are on the DEI, they were led by some MAGA AGs across the country. So your role is certainly specifically very important when it comes to these types of cases. Can you walk me through the timeline here? I know you're going to appeal, but what specifically are the next steps? Where does this fight go next?
Well, we have a hearing on Monday in front of the Supreme Court for challenges to this that predated the election, and the Supreme Court laid out a timeline. And so we are going to follow everything that they've asked us to do. I don't know what the timing is going to be on this current appeal. We have asked for the Supreme Court to move quickly and swiftly, and that's what we hope, because people here in Virginia deserve clarity and they deserve some resolution to this, because we have congressional primaries that are coming up here in the summer, and then we've got to get to November. And again, this is all about the right to vote. It's all about protecting people's fundamental and democratic ability to go and make their voices heard, to speak for their communities. And that's what Virginia did earlier this week. We had 85% turnout of what the gubernatorial race was last year in an April referendum, which I think speaks volumes to Virginia's civic engagement and the people here in the Commonwealth's commitment to participating in the process, which was fantastic. But we also want to make sure that our elections can continue to go forward. The referendum happened, and now it's my job and my office's duty to uphold the will of the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia as yes prevailed, and we'll move forward and we'll fight vigorously to do that in court when the Supreme Court when they hear it, they'll make a decision.
Yeah, and I certainly don't have to tell you the political power Virginia has, being somewhat of a swing state on the electoral map across the country. I want to bring in my panel. We have Winkuni Siant. She's the co-founder of Politicking, and Dr. Greg Carr from Howard University's Department of Afro-American Studies, both from the nation's capital right here in D.C. Dr. Carr, did you have a question for the Attorney General?
Thank you, Tiffany. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Brother General. It's good to see you too, brother. Let me ask you a quick question. We know that Chip Hurley has been trying to put his finger in this thing since earlier in the year. So you say now that the Virginia Supreme Court is going to rule on the underlying legal issues? Because if memory serves me correctly, he was saying earlier this year that the legislature didn't abide by the procedure of having this on the ballot 3 months ahead of the election. And he seems to be a known quality out there in Southwest Virginia, a Republican appointee. But are they going to rule on all of this? Is that you have kind of taken it as a package deal?
So it's a great question, and they have not consolidated the cases yet. So what is coming on Monday is something from a challenge from a little earlier this year. My hope is that we can get this resolved quickly. We have appealed yesterday's ruling immediately to the Court of Appeals, which is the intermediate court between the Supreme Court of Virginia and the Circuit Court, where Judge Hurley sits. And it's my expectation that this will all end up at the Supreme Court of Virginia. But we are going to vigorously argue our case in front of them, and the timeline is really left up to the Supreme Court. So when we know more, you will know more. But on Monday, we'll have oral arguments for the case as it stood before the referendum happened just a couple of days ago.
Winkuni, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Tiffany. Attorney General Jones, if the courts ultimately do strike this down, what's your plan to still pursue fair representation for Virginians?
Well, first, we've got to make sure that we fight vigorously to make sure that the election will stand up and that things will continue to go forward. As I said, millions of people came out to vote earlier this week, and that's really special. Here in Virginia, we take our responsibility to go vote very seriously. We've seen that happen, obviously, over the course of many years, and this was no different. And so we will fight in court. We will make sure that we are advancing all of the arguments that are necessary to validate the people's voices. And again, people came out and voted no this week. People also came out and voted yes, and more people voted yes than no. And my job is to enforce the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And as the laws say, this election stands and things go forward, and we're going to support that. And we're going to work hard to make sure that this result continues to carry forward.
I want to piggyback off that question because the judge is essentially saying that Democrats proposed a constitutional amendment to redraw the state's maps. The state's congressional districts failed to comply with procedural requirements under the state law. I'm just curious if you can give us a preview. What say you to his assertion that this wasn't legal?
Well, look, I'll say this. An activist judge from one county in Virginia should not be able to overturn the will of millions of people here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We have elections for a reason, and we believe in the democratic process. And it's my commitment to make sure that we'll fight for this result, for this outcome, because that's exactly what the people of Virginia did. There were robust and vigorous campaigns on both sides to share their message about why you should or should not support the amendment that was presented to the people of Virginia. And yes won the day. And that's going to carry, and we're going to make sure that we take that all the way until the end. My office is going to fight in court vigorously to make sure that this holds up. And I really do believe that this is exactly why we have elections here in this Commonwealth and in this country, so that we can make our voices heard. This was put to the people of Virginia after passing the General Assembly twice, and everybody had a chance to come out. This was not a closed election. This was not a closed primary. This was a statewide referendum. 45 days of early vote, every means available to people. Certainly, we had a lot of television ads, a lot of mail, some of the misleading mailers, some misleading television ads, millions of dollars spent. And so this is certainly an exercise where everybody had a chance to come and make their voices heard. And I urged everybody to get out and vote because it was really important. And now we've seen the result, and now we got to carry that forward.
Well, this will no doubt become a national referendum. It already has in many ways. And so very wise, Mr. Attorney General, to come on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Often there are more eyes here than there are on some of those cable news outlets. So we certainly appreciate you taking the time on what is sure to be a busy next few days. And we'll definitely be monitoring what happens on Monday. Godspeed to you on those arguments. And we would love to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered very soon. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
This is Bill Duke, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
All right, sticking with politics, House Democratic Leader Hakeem Jeffries is reminding the American people that while Republicans celebrate legislation detrimental to them, Democrats are dedicated to reducing the high cost of living. Take a listen.
Republicans have made clear that their priority is to continue to fund ICE and the violent Trump mass deportation machine, as opposed to making life better for the American people. Funding for the Department of Homeland Security runs out at the end of this month, and is a bipartisan bill that would fund DHS other than ICE and the violent mass deportation machine that was sent over by the Senate to the House weeks ago. Every single senator, every Democrat, and every Republican supports the bipartisan DHS funding bill that House Republicans have refused to take up because they want to continue to jam their extreme ideology down the throats of the American people. Republicans have spent the last few weeks celebrating themselves with silly resolutions on the House floor, congratulating themselves on bills that they have passed which have actually done damage to the American people, including rural America. It's extraordinary. But no wonder the American people have concluded that Donald Trump and Republicans have failed on the economy, and that it's Democrats who are the ones who are actually focused on driving down the high cost of living, making America an affordable place to live, and improving the quality of life of everyday Americans.
Okay, I just want to put this in perspective for the viewers before I bring in my panel. What is at issue here is $70 billion to ICE and Border Patrol. Now, when you think of all the images that you've seen of ICE wreaking havoc on local communities, so the standoff is really about accountability measures for ICE. And I don't have to tell you, because I'm sure, like me, you are very frustrated when you see never-Trumpers and people who 10 years ago may not have had this attitude, but post things like abolish ICE. So it wasn't such a radical idea after all. And now here we are with government funding hanging in the balance. And Dr. Carr, I honestly am a little frustrated with this process. There were, to their credit, 2 Republicans who voted with Democrats on this measure. That was Senator Lisa Murkowski, Republican out of Alaska, and Rand Paul, who is a thorn in Trump's side out of Kentucky. But this standoff seems to happen every few weeks, every few months, and I'm just not sure that we will maintain 3 co-equal branches of government as this kind of the draconian measures keep taking place. Dr. Carr, I see you nodding your head, so I'm going to bring you in.
No, yeah, I agree. I don't give any credit to Murkowski or to Susan Collins. I tell you why, because Collins is in the fight for her political life.
Yeah.
And,
she didn't vote with them, for the record. Collins voted with Republicans.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then, of course, we know that there was an amendment from Senator Ben Ray Lujan to reverse $187 billion in cuts to SNAP.
Yeah. And
that failed by 47 to 50. And Collins and Sullivan did break with the party to support that amendment. Mm-hmm. But clearly, Mark Wayne Mullen, the shirt-off wrestling champ, who's now over DHS, the question is TSA going to be paid? And we know that Mullen has said they're going to run out of money in the next few weeks for them. I give Jeffries credit for this. Jeffries, they've said they're not going to fund anything that has these anti-immigrant, anti-immigration elements in it. And so hold the line, and we'll see if the Republicans can figure out a way to try to reconcile this. Of course, the MAGA Muppet over there in the House of Representatives is going to have worse time because he's got those crazy budget folk over there. And I doubt that it will pass the House of Representatives, but I guess we'll see.
You know, Cooney, I think a part of the challenge when we put these things in political terms alone, it can be really challenging to make it make sense, to draw that human connection to what's happening. 32 people died in ICE custody last year, making it the deadliest year in more than 2 decades. ICE was holding nearly 70,000 people in mid-December. Nearly 75% of them had no criminal convictions. Immigration lawyers and lawmakers have reported unsanitary conditions, inadequate food, poor medical care. We've seen so many reports about children being abused at these institutions, but also just holding children where food is rationed, they're undernourished. Mothers have reported not having basic things like diaper cream. So where is the self-described pro-life party when it comes to care about children? So I think when you put these things in a very humane perspective for people, I think at least a portion of society might be a little outraged and better understand what's at risk here. But just curious your take on all of this and how much confidence do you have in Democrats being able to hold the line here?
I don't have a lot of confidence in politics these days, Tiffany, unfortunately, because we've seen too many betrayals at the hands of our so-called elected officials. But what I will say, to your point, the pro-life party is the pro-white evangelical party, and I want to be clear on that. That's what the Republican Party has continued to stand for, and so it's not shocking that they continue to stand for that now. And as a Haitian American, I'm outraged and I'm disgusted, and it's a continual abuse of power in this country. And of course, people with logic are going to say, hey, we can't continue to fund this Ku Klux Klan militia, right? That's going under the guise of ICE. But I think the challenging part, Tiffany, is a lot of people don't know what the Department of Homeland Security does aside from ICE, and the reasons why it is important to fund the non-ICE factions, right? So when you spoke about TSA, right, when we saw that breakdown in the airport systems of our country, that's because TSA wasn't being paid. When we think about disaster response and emergency management, DHS is the organization that oversees that. When you think about cybersecurity protection, when you think about national security and counterterrorism, although arguably we're the terrorists now, we really see these are the places in which DHS really activates. And so it is important for DHS to continue to exist as an organization. However, DHS has gone a long way off from the reason why it was founded. It was founded post 9/11 as an attempt to quote unquote protect this country. But now we see it being used as a modern day slave patrol, and we need to be wary of that. And so I'm really hoping that Democrats can hold the line on that. But am I confident? not so much.
Yeah, you know, I just want to take a moment to shout this out because you're a Haitian American, so I just want to take a quick moment to shout out Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, first Black woman to represent Boston, Massachusetts in the U.S. House of Representatives, but she held the line and was able to protect TPS for Haitian people here, the temporary protected status. And because you brought up evangelicals, Dr. Carmen, to bring you in, because listen, the white is silent. We hear media all the time reference evangelicals, but they've never bothered to say white. They just assume. But I know a lot of deaconess, board serving, choir singing Black women who would call themselves evangelicals too. But here's the interesting thing about these quote unquote evangelicals. Over 80% of white evangelicals who are hardcore in the Trump campaign say they go to religious services a few times a year or less. The emphasis is on or less. So they have turned the mega church into the MAGA church and a demon into a deity. What say you about this group of people serving this God that is okay with shooting a mother in the face and a nurse in the back?
My God, that's a bar. I love it. The MAGA church. Well, they've never believed in the same God we believe in. We can go back to the 19th century. David Walker said that these people are not Christians. What they are is religious fascists. They are to Christianity what Al-Qaeda is to Islam. They are absolute religious fascists. And Donald Trump got a little bit over his skis with his Easter Sunday post, but he is their Lord and Master. And you got a nut like Mike Huckabee loose in Israel, refusing to call Palestinians Palestinians and saying it's Judea and you know, it's like, yeah, because they have a fascist view that is absolutely consistent with settler colonialism. Domestically, that means that they would rather die than have any form of humanity that would include all of us. They are white nationalists. Their religion is the religion of the Ku Klux Klan. If you want any evidence of that, 2 days ago, when the damn Department of Justice now going after the Southern Poverty Law Center for trying to shut down the Klan, their whole thing, they've weaponized this federal government as an instrument of their Christo-fascist approach. Sam Alito is right with them as well. These are Christian soldiers, but it ain't the same God we worship.
Yeah, and I'm just curious your thoughts because I asked when Cooney this question as well. You know, when we talk about these things, I remember watching segments like this, and the conversations were very inside the beltway. You know, really a lot of political speak. And, you know, I've been covering politics for 25 years now, so now I get it. But I think about the person watching at home, and it just sounds like, oh, Congress is fighting again over money. But that's not really what the fight is about. And I think that something about our psyche, our humanity, things are conceivable in mass numbers, right? You know, if we say, oh, 3,000 people died today, then it sounds like something that's too bad. And we turn to our dinner tables and finish eating our meal. But if I tell you the one story of a little girl named Sarah who wanted to be a ballerina and loved the aquarium, and I tell you her story, then it's more heartfelt. And so I wonder if we get lost in the messaging around this, because like you said, Cooney, I do not have a lot of confidence in politics, and I'm also not a party person either. My politics are Black. You know, so I give praise where it's due, but Ben Ray Lujan is a Democrat. And as Dr. Carr said, supported a bill to cut SNAP benefits, which is already the version of the loose change in the federal budget's couch, you know? So I don't know, I guess I'm just rambling at this point because I thought you might be able to tell me something to encourage me, but you feel how I feel about politics. So I'm just curious your thoughts on it all.
You gotta encourage yourself. That's what the Black church says. You gotta encourage yourself.
Amen, amen. But I'm feeling discouraged. And okay, well then let me ask you both this. And maybe somebody out there feels like me, so maybe your words will give some encouragement there. We see democracy crumbling before our eyes. And I am concerned about that because the folks who look like us will be hurt first and will be harmed the worst. There's also the school of thought that I ain't really too keen on saving something that didn't really serve us in the first place. When Roe fell, that happened in democracy. When Trump was elected, that happened in democracy. So I'm starting to wonder, how can we coexist in a democracy with people who are rooted in our oppression and destruction? So if you got some words on that, Dr. Carr, Cooney, whoever got something to tell me, please preach to me on this Thursday.
I'm gonna let Dr. Carter.
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say, Tiffany, I'm probably not the most encouraging. Again, I'm Haitian, so I'm about ready to revolt. That's what we know how to do. But what I will say is that Black America has to band together. And don't mind that I'm a Garveyist and I think we should leave, but Black America has to band together even here, and we have to create our own systems, right? We have to start, creating our own school systems, creating our own banking systems, creating our own political systems. That's the way that we're able to really galvanize political power and political capital in this country. What we need to see is more Black and brown people coming out to vote, because that's when people start to pay attention to the things that are coming out of our mouths. So we have to not only go out at the polls and vote, we have to continue to boycott and support Black businesses. Everyone knows that in America, money is the way that people like to be talked to. So we have to make sure that we're actualizing not only our political capital, but our financial capital. And lastly is our social capital. So once we're starting to wield these things in tandem, I think the Black community will have a way better leg to stand on. But right now, unfortunately, a lot of Black America is still too fixated on Western ideals to really recognize the type of warfare that's being launched against us. So I think it's really important, if I leave people with three things today, is actualize your political capital, your financial capital, and your social capital, and bond together to make sure that we have a leg to stand on.
I'm so happy you said that, because I don't want anyone to mistake my frustration or my message to say that we shouldn't vote. We have to fight on every front. But I just want us to tap into our imagination and try to think about what a democracy would look like if we were its architect. We don't want to resort back to what was. We want to build what could be together. Dr. Carr, give me some words of wisdom in your wise way that you do, and your wise way that keeps me from ever calling you Greg, Dr. Carr.
Yeah, you're going to call me Greg tonight. I think it'll happen tonight in a minute. But my friend, already know. I mean, I agree with what you said. I mean, first of all, Haiti is still free. They had a hell of a constitution put in place after they sold Toussaint out the French and killed him, and Desillusionment come along, and they had that 1805 constitution that declared everybody who's going to stay here is going to be politically Black. It never got put in place because they kept interfering with Haiti. But here we are over 200 years later, and Haiti fights on. What's the lesson in that? I think there are two lessons. Number one, all empires fall, and it's usually through overreach. Mm-hmm. The ancient Egyptians, you go to the New Kingdom, it was overreach that caused them to be invaded. China, overreach. It's always overreach. We're at that stage now with the United States, and I'm for one and thrilled. I'm excited about that. Our people were trafficked. I could give a damn about the United States, democracy, any of it. The other lesson is when these empires fall and disintegrate, and we get this lesson from China. 4,000 years plus they've been going, but there have been moments of political instability that lasted centuries. What kept them together was the local. So I couldn't stress and echo what you said, Wakuni, more. When the thing falls apart, it will be your local relationships which allow you to endure and build what's coming next. And finally, I agree with you, sis, in terms of Garveyite, our solidarity must be international. Iran right now is winning the information war. People are calling it propaganda, but these Lego videos are causing people to understand this is a moral battle that transcends nation-state lines. The American Negro was only doomed if we decide to confine our solidarity to the four corners of this country. These people don't give a damn about the United States. Elon Musk, the Trump crime family, Steve Witkoff, the crypto king, Trump's son-in-law with the dead man suit, Jared Kushner, they're making deals without regard to the nation state. Meanwhile, they want us to sit in the four corners of this country. No, this is a moment as this empire falls for us to go out globally and see who are our allies and then locally organize for what comes next. It's an exciting time. I couldn't be more excited about what's going on now because we're at the end. I didn't think I was going to live to see it, but now here we are. It's a beautiful thing as far as I'm concerned.
Somehow, magically, I feel encouraged. I knew you would do it, Dr. Carr. I think you might feel encouraged too, Nkuni, because I mean, honestly, one, you just gave us a whole history lesson, and I love that you're saying our solidarity has to be global. we're seeing right now is a shift in global powers. We're seeing the rise of the global South. And I agree with you. I think the days of the West being the sole superpower on the global stage are quickly ending. And the rest of the globe sees that. But I think we're so insulated, to Winkuni's point, in American ideals that we can't see that. I do want to caution folks, though, when we say, I understand you're a Garveyite, but when we say let's leave, we have to consider that less than 10% of Black people have passports, have the ability to leave. You think about people who have kids in school or aging parents and some of the financial barriers of leaving. But I do think that we should explore those options as well. I'm not so beholden to this place, but I definitely get the idea that we can't flee what our ancestors fought and died for. So we could have this conversation for many, many days and have really great exchange here. So I thank you both for that. I don't know about you guys, but I need some love in my life. So we're going to take a quick break. Roland Martin Unfiltered will be right back. But on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about some love, because I think we all need a little bit of love. And we're going to talk about love through the lens of music. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you on the other side.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Bria Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Brittany Noble, Midwest-born, HBCU educated with experience in newsrooms across the country. Well, I've teamed up with Roland Martin to bring to you The Breakdown. This isn't just news. It's our stories, our voice, our community. Join me for The Breakdown, Monday through Friday at midday, only on the Black Star Network.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
What's happening? This is your man, Motown recording artist Kim. You are watching the Black Star Network.
All right, so get this. Ellen Fisher, a third-year Black law student at the Texas Tech University School of Law, is suing the university after its honor council recommended that she be reprimanded for allegedly celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, a conservative figure known for his controversial views. Beyond controversial, some might even say dangerous. According to the lawsuit filed on April 9th, if the honor code sanction becomes final, Fisher would be required to report it to the Texas Board of Bar Examiners, which could cause incalculable damage to her career. This lawsuit highlights a growing trend of universities punishing students and employees for disparaging or even discussing Kirk, who was an advocate for free speech, among other things. Following his death. 6 months after his passing, institutions continue to grapple with how students and employees can express their views about him and whether the First Amendment protects their speech. So we're going to get into this. Joining me now is Robert Shibley. He's special counsel for campus advocacy at the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression of FIRE. Now, while FIRE does not represent Fisher, they did assist her in finding legal counsel through their legal network. Robert, I'm so happy to have you here. When I read this, I think there are so many people out there who can understand this, because as I understand it, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, the person who even brought this forth is a woman, Terry Morgeson. She's a clinical instructor and director of the School of Law Family Clinic. She's the one who reported Fisher to the Honor Council after overhearing her. So she wasn't even in the conversation. She overheard her discuss Kirk's death with other classmates in a way that she deemed unprofessional. And I have to say, there are so many people who look like me who are over-policed in even our behavior. So why does this person, this instructor, who was not even involved in the conversation, how is it that she has any legal standing or any disciplinary standing with this network, with this council?
Yeah, so this is a common problem on campuses, particularly when dealing with people who are activists, is that because they tend to be more outspoken, they often face these kind of professionalism charges that are really much more at the discretion of universities and law schools like Texas Tech's than most people, I think, realize and probably would be comfortable with if you knew enough about it. Because what it does is it gives the people who are in charge a huge amount of leeway to just decide, well, I think the way you're behaving there, what you're saying, what you're doing, the way you're acting is inappropriate for your profession. And sure, that may not be that may not seem like a severe punishment in the sense that being expelled or something like that is. But having a letter of reprimand in your law school file can definitely cause problems with being admitted to the bar, certainly to being hired at law firms. It can be something that follows you for a long time. And it's not just law students who face this. We see this often with students in nursing and the health professions. And to a lesser extent, but still real in education circumstances. So this professionalism thing, it really is, it can act like a making adult babysitters out of the professors at a college or university.
And here's another little tidbit of news. You also see that in newsrooms as well, when people who consider what to be professional or what to be unbiased is often rooted in what is white and male. I do want to let the viewers know exactly what Fisher is accused of saying. So Morgeson, this woman who was all in the Kool-Aid, she reported hearing Fisher say that MF got shot, though other witnesses have disputed this language. But she says that she heard her say that. Others told the Honor Council investigator they heard Fisher say to clinical lecturer Joe Stevens, "I'm in the best mood ever, and they got him. This is great." Now, Joe Stevens, the lecturer who they claim that they heard her say this to, he has also said that he does not recall Fisher making either comment, and he told that to the Honor Council during the hearing. What happens next for her? What is the next steps in this process?
Right. Well, what she's brought a federal lawsuit against Texas Tech, and the grounds is something called First Amendment retaliation. And what that is, it's a special kind of First Amendment claim that happens when somebody who works for an agency of the government, which Texas Tech is, takes action against you specifically because they disapprove of something that you said that's protected by the First Amendment. So instead of censoring you up front or telling you you're not allowed to say something, they take an action against you afterwards once you've said the thing. And that's the single count of this lawsuit. But you're right to point out there doesn't seem to be any evidence that anybody else who was critical of Charlie Kirk or said anything about him was punished at Texas Tech. There were several others brought up in the lawsuit, and there's been no sign that any of them faced any kind of punishment. And also, these are adults. Adults are allowed to engage in political discussions, certainly at law school. I went to law school. lots of people have. We all know that political discussions take place among people who are lawyers and who want to be lawyers. There's nothing unusual about people having strong feelings and be able to express them. It doesn't mean that you're not qualified to be an attorney. And that's essentially what they're saying here, is that you're not professional enough to even be an attorney. And that just simply isn't something you can determine from somebody's, a few comments that somebody allegedly made and that people disagree about whether they even said.
Right. I mean, I didn't go to law school, but I've watched for years Law & Order, SVU, and Criminal Intent, so I consider myself an officer of the court as well. I am just curious.
We all learned a lot from that.
Didn't we though? Didn't we though? And I'll date myself and say I also watched a lot of LA Law, so I got it all up here.
Oh, there you go, yeah.
But I think, when we look at this, even from a layperson's perspective like mine, there were other things that happened to Fisher. While this investigation was going on, someone wrote the N-word on Fisher's car while it was parked at Texas Tech. So, there's reason to be concerned about her physical person, her physical safety. And she says when she reported it to the school, she was told it was irrelevant to the complaint. So just to, put this in context, there have been comments, negative comments about then President Obama on college campuses. Even when you would see Charlie Kirk go to some of these campuses, the comments he himself would make. And then there was this effort of Turning Point to go on HBCU campuses, and they called it trying to engage in debate when it was really gaslighting and harassment. And so I do wonder, where do we draw the line on the First Amendment and free speech issues? I mean, it certainly sounds like what happened here is a free speech issue. I just wonder if I'm at an HBCU and somebody is provoking me and saying, in things to me that invoke anger. I don't know. I'm just trying to challenge myself to think, well, is that too then their right to free speech?
Well, it is, and it's also the right of people to respond. I mean, that's what we expect if we're going to have a democratic society where everybody gets a say and where everybody's beliefs actually matter. They have to feel free to say them. And one of the things that we believe strongly at FIRE is that it's also very important to know what people really think, rather than tell them to be quiet about the things that they may or may not believe. If you want to argue that somebody's beliefs are wrong, you ought to be free to do that, and they ought to be free to argue back, so that they can learn and actually change their minds. Just, slapping a professionalism punishment or something like that on them and sort of, I guess, teaching them through just a simple pain not to say what they really believe doesn't teach people a lesson that they're wrong. If anything, I think for most of us, it would convince us more that, we were right, and that what we had to say was so threatening that the people in power decided that we had to be punished for saying it. That may or may not be true, but I think that's what most people take away when they're punished just for saying something controversial.
Yeah, and you see these videos all the time. I appreciate what you said. You see these videos of, people donned in their MAGA attire, and it seems like sometimes they do want engagement. And so you say, yeah, people, have a right to free speech, but people also have a right to respond. So just hypothetically, Robert, if I were to respond to somebody who's talking to me a little crazy, can I count on you to come and defend my right to my response?
Well, on college campuses, I mean, we are one of one of our things is that we take every case that comes to us from college campuses that actually fits within our mission. And so we encourage any students who are having situations like this about Charlie Kirk, pro or con. We take cases from both sides. We've had TPUSA cases the same day we've had Turning Point USA cases. It doesn't matter to us. We try to defend everyone without picking favorites, because we believe that everybody should have a chance to have their say, and their arguments will either succeed or fail. But what isn't right is for the authorities, whoever that is, whether it's Texas Tech or the federal government or state governments or state politicians, putting pressure on things to just decide who gets to say what they believe and who doesn't.
Yeah, and I certainly don't want to make light of this for Ms. Ellen Fisher, because this can actually have very serious consequences, as you pointed out, on her future as a lawyer. But I hope that it cements her as a bright young legal scholar in our future, because I really appreciate the fact that she is using their own tactics against them legally and professionally. So she certainly sounds like quite the professional to me. So kudos to her, and kudos to you for taking up these types of issues. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time to be here, and I'm going to keep your number handy just in case one of these incidents happens. I live by Howard University, so you never know. We appreciate you taking the time tonight. I know I promised the audience at home love. Don't worry, it's coming up right now, but we're going to take a quick break, and we'll get to that love on the other side.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, a relationship that we have to have. We're often afraid of it and don't like to talk about it. That's right, we're talking about our relationship with money. And here's the thing, our relationship with money oftentimes determines whether we have it or not. Balancing your relationship with your pocketbook, that's next on A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
A decade of love, joy, and power. Black Voters Matter is 10 years old, and we are just getting started. This is love with a purpose. This is Black joy in motion. This is unstoppable power. Across campuses, neighborhoods, and back roads. Let's go! We show up, not just to vote, but to be seen, to be heard, to belong. We ride together, we organize together. We remind each other that our voices matter, because they always have. Black Voters Matter is about more than ballots. It's about housing and healthcare, clean water and living wages, education, reproductive freedom, and dignity. It's about turning pain into action, turning belief into movement, turning community into power. We don't wait to be invited. We bring the energy. We bring the love. We bring the people. Because when Black communities come together, we don't just survive, we thrive. This is how change happens. This is how history moves. We organize, we build, we win.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, I'm Malcolm Lee, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
All right, I'm so excited because joining me now is Grammy award-winning poet and spoken word artist Jay Ivey. And why might Mr. Jay Ivey be here straight out of the shy?
Yes.
Because it is Grammy on the Hill this week.
Yes.
Grammys on the Hill.
Grammys on the Hill.
Grammys on the Hill this week.
Yeah.
And you are in town. I'm so excited about it. And you are in town because you are, of course, a Grammy winner. I had the honor of being there with you when you won the Grammy.
Yeah.
Congrats, my brother.
We did that.
Congrats.
We did that.
And you created this category or helped to create the category of spoken word artists. But what is Grammys on the Hill?
So Grammys on, well, first off, it's great to be here with you. Love you much. Grammys on the Hill it's been going on for 25 years. The Recording Academy brings out artists, musicians, producers to come to DC to advocate for certain legislation that will help protect artists, create rights that will protect artists and musicians and creatives.
Okay. Well, that means with AI and everything happening, that certainly seems like a worthy cause.
Absolutely. So that was one of our, that was the discussion. So one of the main acts was called the No Fakes Act. And they brought about 100 of us out and broke us up into groups. So each group went and spoke to about 4 or 5 congressmen and women and House representatives. And AI was absolutely the discussion because there's been so many cases of folks being ripped off, work being stolen. Yeah. While AI is a great tool, at the same time, anything that's a tool can be abused. And right now it's the Wild Wild West. There are no guardrails to protect creatives and artists and musicians.
Or a lot of other people. I mean, technology is moving faster than legislation. And I don't know if AI is a great tool, my friend, but that's a discussion for another time.
Yes.
I have some concerns about AI. But I want to ask...
We all do.
Yes,
we all
precisely.
Do. Yeah.
I want to ask what may be a controversial question to ask you, since you're a Grammy Award winner, but how relevant are award shows these days? I think when we were younger, it was a big deal. People got award shows, but with all the streaming platforms and I feel like social media has really democratized that who gets to rock the mic, who gets to build an audience. So do the Grammys matter anymore?
Absolutely,
okay.
The Grammys matter. I'm a living testament. Life has changed since the Grammy wins.
Excuse me. The Grammy wins.
The wins. But it's music at its core is it brings people together. It heals us. It connects us. It feeds us. It is the soundtrack of our lives. And when you have award shows that shine a light on the art, it's incredible. So in the case of the Grammys, what's beautiful about the Grammys is a peer voted on award. So it's being recognized by those that you create with and move with and fellowship with and cross paths with. So these are the people that's voting on the award. So to be acknowledged by your peers, it's incredible. And anytime a light is put on the art, to me, that helps the world, even if it's a little bit, it helps.
Well, one of my favorite songs by you is "Nothing in This World." PJ Morton, is that who?
Oh wait. Well, not of this world.
No.
But PJ is.
There's nothing
thank you.
in this world. Don't make me sing. I'm gonna embarrass myself.
You talking about You talking about Without You?
Yes.
That's actually BJ the Chicago Kid.
BJ the Chicago Kid.
Yeah.
I always imagined that you were singing that to your lovely wife, Tari Teray.
Yes.
Who's not here, but Roland, because everything is alpha around here. Tari is a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta. She's not here. But it's such a beautiful love song. It really is, and it's so gorgeous. I hope people will take time to listen to it. And I was thinking about that. It seems like love songs are fading from view, fading from our conversation. And at a time where sometimes it feels like there's a little tension between black men and black women, I just can't help but connect that to love songs fading. It is hard to find love songs by black artists, yet love songs by non-black artists are everywhere. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think the love songs are being created. I just think they're, like you said, they're harder to find. You have to dig in the crates, and why that is. It's a lot of different conversations we can go into, but it's important to recognize that the love is there. Our love in the black community is absolutely there, and creators are creating music that reflects that. I know we created. Tari Teray has a whole album called Catching Dreams, which is incredible, by the way. Go stream that, Tari Teray, Tarrey, Torae. But it's an example of love music that's being created all the time. But I will say, with all the music that's being made and distributed nowadays, it is harder to find, and folks may not necessarily want to inspire black love.
Yes.
So
it's a vested interest in not having us love each other.
Absolutely.
I agree with that.
So I think that plays a big part into what's being heard by the masses.
Right. What's in heavy rotation that's
Absolutely.
we have to go seek out love songs and artists.
Yeah.
In 2024, a popular streaming service said their most popular search for songs was sad. And there's something about that I think that's reflected in what we're all enduring and experiencing at this time. It's almost like, there's sometimes loathing, it seems, between coming together, and love has always been such key to our survival here. I want to bring my panel into the discussion, but before I do, I just want to ask you a quick question. It's another controversial question. Today, Drake he is dropping a new album. Can he make a comeback? Because I kind of feel like Kendrick destroyed him for life.
I mean,
in the social stratosphere, it seems that way, but
yeah, I think we are naturally a forgiving people.
yes.
And
if the art comes.
If the art comes, and I heard Drake got some ice melting in Toronto or something like that.
Yeah, people were taking like hacksaws to it. It was quite a PR stunt.
Yeah, so I mean, Drake is incredible, and while he definitely took a L, I mean, it is what it is. He took a L in that moment. I don't think he's done.
Okay.
I mean, it's Drake. It's Drake. So I mean, he
has fans.
Yeah, he got a whole lot of them.
Still around after the whole dun dun dun. That was a bop. Okay. Well, I want to bring in Dr. Carr, and as I do it in my shameless self-promotion. Since we're talking about love,
Ain't no shame.
Dr. Carr.
Yes.
I write a lot about love and songs and the dynamic between Black men and Black women. In Love Me, a letter to Black women in a toxic country, career and relationships, available everywhere books are sold. Do you want to hold it?
Yes, I want.
It's like holding your Grammy, so you can be careful
absolutely.
with it. Okay, great.
I got you.
Okay, there you go. Dr. Carr, if you could please work my book in your answer, what do you make of all of this love talk and love songs, the lack of love songs?
I would say this very simply. In addition to look out for the conversation with Tiffany Cross on her new book, Love Me, on not only Michael Harriot's platform and Contraband Camp, where Tiffany is working with him, but also on the Black Table, because we're going to have a conversation there. And work that in as she's doing her national book tour. It's launching in a couple of weeks, so make sure you get it. And I'm gonna get my autograph copy. I have that the digital, but I'm getting that one as well. So I think. What's interesting? You are an example of something I want to ask you about, Brother Ivy, the question of intellectual property. Tiffany, you're a wholly owned subsidiary. You own yourself. You move through the world on your own terms, and you deal with whoever you need to deal with based on your terms. And I think that question of intellectual property is very important. You interact with the big publishers, as you've done with Love Me. And at the same time, you're here in independent media, you're working with Michael Harriot, you're a self-contained entity. Brother Ivy, as it relates to intellectual property, you mentioned the legislation you're trying to lobby to move through Congress. We know that AI is an uncharted territory, and it makes me think about something that the jazz critic Gary Giddens once said about Sonny Rollins. He said, Sonny Rollins he issues recordings, albums, but he really issues those almost like as an advertisement for you to come see him at the club. Black folk have been fighting intellectual property issues in entertainment for years. Bessie Smith made Columbia Records rich, but she didn't get the money off the records. She got the money off the live performances like Ma Rainey did and so many others. You're a performance poet. Could you talk to us a little bit about how the revenue streams from your live performances differ from the revenue streams coming from the pennies on the dollar you might get from a recording, from a material unit that these folks have figured out ways to basically almost shut you out of? Is AI able to reach into your live performances at this stage? And are you worried about competing one day with a hologram Tupac? Because I know Tiffany Cross ain't never going to have to compete with a hologram Maya Angelou. But I'm just wondering, what's the difference between the live performances and the units that you move? And how could AI maybe disrupt one, but maybe you're insulated a little bit in the other category?
Good question.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a steady fight. To be an artist is, you have to really be dedicated to this life, and AI is making it a little bit more difficult. It was already difficult with streams. Streams, you get paid 0.000 one per stream for every stream. So it makes it difficult to recoup money from that stream of revenue. So there are the live shows that you depend on, and speaking engagements and licensing your music. You look for other ways to bring in that money while this unfair system is being managed or unmanaged until it's figured out. You know, we just go keep fighting to make sure that the right legislation comes into play, so that artists who are dedicating their lives, their souls, their arts, their money, resources, time to creating music is honored, and folk can make a decent living off what they create.
That is an interesting concept, though, Dr. Carr, about, I didn't think about the element of live performance. Like, could you see a hologram J. Ivy 20 years from now, doing something, and how that impacts artists and their revenue stream?
Yeah, like for me, I don't want our humanity to be lost. Like, art is a reflection of who we are, and I don't want us to get lost in this artificial or unreal world where we lose that human connection.
Yeah. Winkuni, we've been talking about love songs. I don't know how often you hear love songs. I don't know what the ballads are these days, but it feels like they're lacking. Is that your experience in the genre? You're muted. I don't think we can hear you.
Sorry, I was saying I do think we need to bring back begging, because that's a lost art.
Yeah.
And I think, very few R&B soulsters have been able to really archive that in a way that's meaningful. But what I will say, though, is one thing that I really appreciate about Jay is the fact that you are making love songs for Black people, right? And I think these last 2 weeks have been dark, let's be honest, for Black people, for Black women, for Black men. And there's so much discourse about, killing each other, unfortunately. And I think love has to be injected back into the conversation. And I think what you do as an artist, Jay, is remind people that Black men do love Black women and vice versa, right? And I think we need to continue to carve out spaces for that. So I just thank you for creating and providing those spaces, because I think sometimes it can be demoralizing when we continue to watch the news and we're feeding ourselves with that rhetoric, right? That's negative and that says that Black women and Black men hate each other, but that we know that that's not the case. And so, I appreciate that you're paying homage to that in your records.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you for that. I'm a strong believer in love. I'm married to an incredible, beautiful Black woman from the south side of Chicago. I was raised by beautiful Black women, beautiful parents and grandparents, and I just come from that. I believe in love. I love that you have love in your title. I love love, and again, I do think the music is there. I just went to Floetry's concert last night, which was absolutely incredible. Shout out to the flow assist and the songstress, and Raheem Devon and Tidra Moses. It was love being sung about all night.
That's beautiful.
Poetry. So it's there. We just have to
go find
that we're plugging into the right sources.
Well, you are one of the right sources, so
you.
we cannot thank you enough for giving us beautiful ballads. The Beautiful Journey, a song you have with Dion Cole, one of my favorites. And we know him as John Legend only because you gave John Legend his name. J. Ivy is the one who named John Legend. So you get to hang with all the cool kids, but I'll be sitting here working, Jay. But thank you so much for coming by. We really appreciate it. And please check out J. Ivy's collection of beautiful music. It stays in heavy rotation at my house, and grateful to you for spending some time with us on this Thursday evening. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Rhea Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
I'm Brittany Noble, Midwest-born, HBCU educated with experience in newsrooms across the country. Well, I've teamed up with Roland Martin to bring to you The Breakdown. This isn't just news. It's our stories, our voice, our community. Join me for The Breakdown, Monday through Friday at midday, only on the Black Star Network.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, I'm TD Jakes, and you are watching the Black Star Network.
All right, in recent weeks, we have witnessed far too many Black women losing their lives at the hands of men who claim to love them. Those tragedies involve sons, boyfriends, and husbands who have taken the lives of mothers, sisters, wives, girlfriends, aunts, daughters, and grandmothers. A common factor in these incidents appears to be stress within the relationships. So tonight, we are joined by Dr. Tori Protowiley, a licensed professional counselor who will help us examine how to address these issues healthily. And we're going to start off with Brittany Noble, host of the Black Star Network's The Breakdown. She's going to share her experiences of being in what she describes as a violent relationship, highlighting how such stress can escalate. Thanks you, ladies, for joining me. Brittany, I do want to start with you and give you space to share your testimony. And before you even begin, I just want to say thank you for being brave enough to share what you're going to share, and I hope that it can impact the lives of everyone watching tonight.
Tiffany, I appreciate that because it is very scary and I am very deep in this, but it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. And I feel like my son and I have a story that we can share. And we hope that by us sharing our experience that it helps other people, even if just one other person. But it was very difficult. You know, I'm the host of The Breakdown. And so covering cases of domestic violence was extremely difficult this week, especially when I found myself in family court myself. Domestic violence is very real. And, you know, people that have watched me and followed me over the years and have seen my social media have probably wondered what in the world happened. I mean, here is somebody who, you know, was in love and had been in a romantic relation for many years and then got married, and it was very public. More than 1,000 people, you know, were at my wedding. And it's like, well, how did we get here? You know, what could have been happening that could have led you to this situation? And, you know, I think about growing up and what I considered love. And a lot of times, you know, pain was love. And it was okay if somebody talked down to me, right? It was okay if somebody made fun of me. It was okay if somebody even hit me. You know, I would easily forgive it. And I felt like that was love. And the next thing I know, I'm in an abusive situation.
So Brittany, let me ask you, because you're saying like all of this collection of things, but what was a specific incident that happened in what you're describing as an abusive relationship? Did it start out as an insult? Did it get physical? Like, walk us through the first time you remember feeling like, oh, maybe this isn't healthy, or maybe this isn't right, or this feels abusive.
You know what? I will be very, very honest and frank with you and get straight to the. They say that it takes women, or it takes people more than 7 times to get out of an abusive relationship. And it took me far many more times than that. And I understand that that's the norm. How did it start? I've experienced, it started off as, just making fun of, and then it truly escalates. And yes, I've experienced all different forms of domestic violence, from insults and put downs to physical violence to legal abuse.
So what was the first time it got, so it can start out as ribbing, where it's an insult, but your spirit felt like, oh, this doesn't feel good. What was the first time it got physical? What happened the very first time that you were physically assaulted?
The first time that I was physically assaulted, I had been in the relationship for quite some time. And I was at home. We shared a home at that time. And it was a space where now he's in control and I can't get out. And that's when the physical abuse first started.
So I was trying to ask for specifics, because I think there's somebody in a situation right now trying to make sense of something that happened to him. On another show I hosted, a woman talked about being in the car, and I asked her the same question. What happened the first time that you were physically abused? And she was driving in the car with her husband, and their 4 children were in the back seat. And she commented that she was riding and he was driving. She commented that he was driving too fast, and he reached across and punched her in the nose. And she was bleeding and was in a state of shock that this happened in front of her children. So I think those specifics are, frightening to hear. But if it's something that maybe isn't, if it was like, you were grabbed or you were shaken, all of those things I think are helpful for women to note. If your spirit feels off, if something is telling you, this doesn't feel right, this doesn't feel healthy, I don't feel emotionally safe, I don't feel physically safe, those are signs to pay attention to. So I want to bring you in, Dr. Tori Prothawiley, and get your perspective as a licensed professional. When you hear Brittany talk about, we kind of normalize pain, and we grow up, and because we have so many wounds, we mistake very toxic relationships for love. What are some signs that women should be on the lookout for very early on in these relationships?
Well, first of all, thank you, Tiffany, for having me, and thank you for hosting. It was a pleasure to actually see you and work with you. I love your work. You're welcome. So yeah, I think that one of the first signs for women is to notice just energy. Like when we walk in a room together, how does he act? How does he respond to other people around me? How does he respond to my family? I've had a lot of women tell me in sessions that they knew their parents or their siblings didn't like the guy they're seeing. However, they continue to see them. So I think listening to the people that you love and support, also looking at energy, and also one indicator that I think gets misconstrued a lot. How did he treat his last girlfriend, wife, his mother? How does this man engage with women? And to notice that, I've heard many women say, well, he treats them like that way, he won't do that to me. And that's where we are grossly mistaking the personality of a person.
Yeah, because we want to be the chosen one. We're the special one. And that, even that, though, it really isn't love. It is a need to fill yourself up, because love has more depth than, well, he was awful to them, but he'll be good to me. That is a brokenness. You are looking for healing in brokenness. And so I certainly understand that. I write a lot about that in my book. And one of the things that I explore is the challenges around therapy, because, you know, we're talking about Black men and their mental health, but quite truthfully, there's a lot that, you know, women need to explore in therapy. I'm curious your thoughts. What if you are stressed? And this, I guess it would be for men or women. You're stressed, you're not suicidal, you don't have thoughts about self-harm or harming anyone else, but you feel like you just need some help figuring things out. And I think sometimes we conflate mental health with mental illness. And it's, you know, like, what would you say to that person who's like, well, I don't need to go to the therapist because I'm not, you know, like, I'm not staying at home under the covers crying, but I do feel a heaviness that I need to work through. What would you say to that person?
Excellent question. And I think oftentimes women focus a lot more on there needing to be a crisis, there needing to be a last resort, rather than let me just take care of myself. Let me take care of my health. Let me have better self-care. And so to that, I say, if you feel something's off, like, don't wait when you have a physiological issue. So please also don't wait when there's a mental health issue. And I think many times we think things have changed. But I think when you've been dating someone a couple of months, and the majority of the time that you spend with him, you're on pins and needles, you're uncomfortable, or you're second guessing his intentions, why is there a third, fourth, fifth date? And so when you're having those type of questions or those type of situations, therapy is the first resort, because you just need a sounding board. You need somebody to talk to make sense of what's going on.
You know, I might add that therapy is where you go before you even venture to get in a relationship. You know, self-love, I think, with Black women is such a huge deal. And I think sometimes people, you know, when you ask, I remember my therapist asked me, do you love yourself? And I was shocked that I had difficulty answering the question. And when you talk to Black women and you ask that same question, they're like, you know, we Black women. So we like, yeah, I love myself. You know, I just went to the spa yesterday. And self-care and self-love are different. And when you deeply interrogate yourself, do you love yourself? Then that question has to come with, am I living like I love myself? Am I working like I love myself? Am I dating like I love myself? Because if you're dating like you love yourself, you are not looking at some raggedy man who is treating everybody else like garbage, but treating you special. That is not self-love. But I think on a more practical level, something that a lot of people confront, which, you know, I explored this topic as well, therapy sessions can cost anywhere from $150 to $500 or more. Some therapists do not take insurance. And so not everybody can afford therapy. And then according to the American Psychiatric Association, Black clinicians only represent about 2% of practicing psychiatrists and 4% of psychologists. So disaggregated, that means there's even less Black women and less Black men. So with all the challenges confronting the space of therapy, how can someone navigate the financial issue, but also the provider issue when they really want to connect with someone who looks like them?
Well, actually, there are a lot of organizations and sites now where you can get much more reasonably priced therapy. So, you know, you have sites like BetterHelp, you have Sotomare, you have Headway. There are other places that you can look at now to get a more reasonable rate. There's also Open Path, which I suggest to a lot of people sometimes if they don't have insurance. But also, don't forget, there's church. And then there's also, you know, sometimes I kind of wince at coaching, but if you right now just need to talk to somebody and you do not have the funds to do the other things yet, go seek out a coach as well. Most of the time what I find, though, Tiffany, is that people will refuse therapy because they don't want the answer. They already know. It's already coming up. But they're afraid to pull the trigger. They're afraid to move. So they will put it off. They'll prolong it, or they'll avoid it altogether because they don't want to hear the answer that they already know.
You know, I think there, Brittany, is a spectrum of, you know, you're talking about abusive relationships, but there also are relationships that may not be physically abusive, but they can be toxic. You know, I certainly have thrown out a phrase or two. I think, can't nobody read you like a Black woman, honey, when we are heartbroken and our, you know, feelings are hurt. So it might not be physical abuse, but it can just be a toxic environment. And so what I had to do in my work in therapy and growth and self-reflection is just really look internally to self-love. How can I love myself most and first? Because that love has to be overflow, so anyone else can add to it. I wasn't looking to be filled up. I wonder if you could go back to a younger Brittany, the first time in your relationship where you felt unsafe, emotionally, physically, whichever. What might you say to that younger Brittany today?
You know, I thank God for my therapist. I want to just first note that I have been in therapy for many years, and it's because of domestic violence shelters in different cities that I've been able to connect with, and I've gotten free weekly therapy. And so now I'm able to have conversations like this, right? So what would I say to myself, my younger self that was scared? That I love you, and God loves you too, and God sees you, and God knows all. And he sees all, and he's faithful. And, you know, I wish I could give that little girl a hug, but thank God I can give this big girl a hug. And, you know, and that's what I know. For sure.
That matters though, that little girl, because we can be frozen in our trauma, and somewhere along the way in your life, in my life, and so in our mother's lives, we are carrying the pain of our grandmother's grandmother's grandmother. So somewhere along the way, life and society told us that we are undeserving of love, and we're carrying that. Yes. So when we're trying to break generational curses, we got 1,000 lashes at our back trying to do that. And so I want to honor that Black men, of course, have pain. Sometimes we carry ours and theirs. And so we have to figure this out because, like I said, love has always been key to our survival here, and it matters the most. Doc, I want to bring you in and point out an interesting statistic that I also write about. Black teenage girls outpace both white and Latina girls in suicide attempts, with more than 15% of Black teens reporting an attempt in a calendar year, compared with just over 9% of white teens and 12% of Latinas. I think there is something specific to us and what we are going through. I know that you mentioned the church. I may lose my amen corner here, so y'all give me some grace. But sometimes there is church hurt. Sometimes the abuse is in church. Sometimes your trauma is rooted in an organized religion. So I don't know that that's always the path. I think that can be a component. But I would just push back a little and say church is not therapy. But you correct me if I'm wrong. But
No.
Okay.
You're correct.
Okay.
No, you're very correct. I was just speaking to people who are possibly struggling with income and are of a spiritual background. But I do agree with you, Tiffany, from the standpoint of there's something special about Black women, and that we struggle, I think, with this perfectionism. We want to be perfect. We strive to work really, really hard to outdo our best, our personal best. We're always pushing ourselves. And I think sometimes to our demise in relationships, we think that we can change the narrative of the relationship. We think I can make this different. And so I think that the change or the switch that needs to start to happen is that we parent these young women to understand that no, your job is to do as best as you can, and to be good to yourself, and to make yourself a priority, and to see the significance in your joy as you do in the next person.
You know, I want to bring in my panel because I'm sure they have thoughts about this. Dr. Carr, I want to make sure that we have space for a Black man's voice in this. And I'm just curious, you've heard a lot tonight. Just curious your thoughts on all of this.
Thank you, Tiffany, and thank you, Dr. Prothero Riley and Sister Brittany. I'm just listening. Patriarchy is real. It's very clear. I don't use the concept of femicide any more than I would use the male equivalent, in part because I know that there's no perfect society. But patriarchy isn't exclusive to Western societies, but it is so deeply commingled with cultural grounding in the idea of the individual being the most important unit in a society as opposed to community. I guess as I'm listening, I'm really wondering. My first impulse, having been socialized in this funky Western society, would be to ask, what can men do? But I'm a brother. I was a son. I'm an uncle. If my niece or my daughter were my sister were in harm's way, I'd probably be in jail. So I'm trying to wonder, how can we break this cycle of violence, some of which perhaps we've had with us since the beginning of the species, but much of which is cultural because of the nasty habits we've picked up in a Western society, which is always focused on the individual. Are there solutions we can come up with that center community in a way that can be transformative? And my heart is breaking, Brittany, as I'm listening to you. And of course, we've seen these things you had to report on over the last week. And I'm just wondering how we break this cycle so that it doesn't become, this is the man's responsibility or this is the woman's responsibility. But there are gender dimensions to this, but I'm really at a loss, and I appreciate you all being very open and candid in this conversation. I'm just wondering how we break it at the structural level. And I'm thinking some of that has to do with withdrawing out of these cultural assumptions that center us as individuals. And I don't have an answer. I'm just wondering, and thank you all again for being open in this. And I'm going to continue to listen. I appreciate y'all both.
Thank you, Dr. Carr. We appreciate you. You know, I think that is one of the key things that gets lost in the discussion sometimes, or maybe people are too hurt to hear it or articulate it. Latasha Brown, who is beloved by so many people, but she wrote an incredibly powerful piece today for Contraband Camp, where she talks about what we called love, what we understood love to be. And we would say things like, you know, grandma stayed with granddaddy for years and he had another family, or she raised a kid that he had out of wedlock, and we called that love, or just abuse that, you know, we called love. And we have to start to change the narrative around that. And that's going to take both of us together. So I appreciate your thoughts and words on that, Dr. Carr. Winkuni, I want to, before I let the panel respond to Dr. Carr, I want to bring you in as well and get your thoughts on this.
I guess my question is, it's kind of a piggyback of what Dr. Carr's question is, but I'm wondering, how can communities better teach healthy relationship dynamics from a young age? Because I think there's some of this that's been lost and we're not learning it and we're not preserving these recipes right. And so I'm wondering, how can healthy relationship dynamics be taught? You know, oftentimes the Black community is fragmented in a lot of ways, and a lot of us may not have seen that male-female dynamic in the home, or perhaps the dynamic we saw was unhealthy, right? So how do we teach better relationship dynamics to the next generation and to this generation?
Okay, well, first and foremost, I think, of course, it starts at home. Parents have to model differently in front of their children. We've got to get away from this whole fear of arguments. It is okay to have an argument. What is wrong is how the argument is played out. And so we do have to have better modeling at home with mom and dad, and that needs to also transcend into the school setting. We've lost a lot of power in our school settings, and we've lost a lot of power in our communities as well, as far as what's legal and what's not legal. But the one thing that we can all own is having a better language, having a better way that we communicate with love inside the home. And I think that that's one of the first places to start. And then to also have better education around your emotions and your moods when you're little, when you're young. I think we've been taught so much in our community: chin up, chest out, let's not complain, let's not worry about this, or, you know, you need to be focusing more on this. And as a community that is trying to get ahead and trying to get into a better place, a lot of times we don't focus on the basics. And the basics of humanity is empathy. And so, I got in trouble for saying that word a little bit previously, but I do think that the way that we speak to each other, the language that we use, the way that we create boundaries around what's acceptable and what isn't when we're being spoken to, all of those places are great places to at least start. To let your male children tell you when they're upset and what they're upset about, and give them effective ways in managing their anger. Give them effective ways in handling and sitting with their emotions.
Well, okay, you're the professional. I agree with all of that, but I also want to encourage men to take responsibility for their mental health. It can be hard to try to heal another person when we have so much to heal ourselves. And men have to give that space to each other and to themselves, you know, like Dr. Carr said, taking responsibility for our own mental health. But either way, doctor, I think, this conversation has to keep going. There's not one solution. I think the past few years, we've seen a lot of the red pill, incel men who feel entitled to certain women and who's high value. And the conversation has just really gotten away, which is one of the reasons I wrote my book. It's not just, oftentimes we talk about Black people and it's through the lens of politics, but there are whole human beings under this. And so I wanted to touch on politics, but also touch on our love for each other, because that gets lost in the conversation. So I thank you all for making me better, more insightful. And I certainly learned a lot from hearing from all of you. Thank you so much to both of you ladies for joining and for sharing so much of your personal stories. And you'll have to come back very soon. Hopefully when I'm in the chair again, we can revisit this conversation. For those of you at home, you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back. We'll see you on the other side.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, a relationship that we have to have. We're often afraid of it and don't like to talk about it. That's right, we're talking about our relationship with money. And here's the thing, our relationship with money oftentimes determines whether we have it or not. Balancing your relationship with your pocketbook, that's next on A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Mark Morial, President and CEO of the National Urban League, and I'm watching the Black Star Network.
All right, it's time for headlines with Brittany Noble.
The Justice Department's internal watchdog has initiated an investigation into how the department handled files and documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. This investigation fuels the ongoing controversy surrounding the convicted sex offenders case. The Inspector General will focus on how the DOJ identified, collected, and produced relevant materials. The investigation will also examine the processes for redacting and withholding information, as well as how the Justice Department addressed concerns that arose after the release of Epstein's documents. Congress mandated the release of extensive files gathered during investigations related to Epstein through legislation passed late last year. Some members of Congress have criticized the Justice Department for excessive redactions and for monitoring their searches while reviewing the unredacted materials. A white veteran police officer from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, was arrested in Florida on Wednesday night for allegedly planning a mass shooting in New Orleans. The Louisiana Department of Public Safety said that Christopher Gilliam intended to travel to the New Orleans area Jazz and Heritage Festival, all to carry out the shooting, and then planned to commit suicide by cop. A trip to the Florida Sheriff's Office led to his arrest, and deputies recovered a handgun and approximately 200 rounds of ammunition, all from his hotel room. And in Atlanta, an Emory University law student has been banned from campus for sending a series of racist and threatening emails, all directed at minority groups. University officials confirmed that the emails dating back to March contained racial slurs and language associated with white supremacist ideology. The Emory Black Law Students Association, along with several other student organizations, issued a letter stating that the emails displayed racist, misogynistic, and transphobic ideology and represented an undeniable escalation from dehumanizing and offensive speech to assault. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a new law also on Wednesday that targets diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts at their local level. The law prohibits city and county governments from funding or promoting DEI programs. DeSantis claims that these initiatives discriminate against white men. Additionally, the law allows residents to sue local governments for violations, and it could result in the removal of officials found to support DEI initiatives. This new law builds on the 2023 legislation that already barred public colleges and universities from spending money on DEI programs. And the federal government is considering intervention to prevent Spirit Airlines from shutting down. Recent reports indicate that officials may take a stake in the airline and offer up to $500 million. The support comes as rising fuel costs links to conflict in Iran push the company to brink of collapse. Now, if Spirit fails, it will become the first major U.S. airline in 25 years to cease operations due to financial difficulties. And although the White House has not confirmed any talks, it is monitoring the situation. Sports journalist, producer, and philanthropist Taylor Rooks is making a significant impact outside of sports by eliminating over $2 million in medical debt for families in her hometown. Through the Taylor Rooks Foundation, nearly $2.1 million in unpayable medical debt has been forgiven for more than 1,800 families in Gwinnett County. That's in Georgia. This initiative is deeply personal for her. Her younger sister lives with type 1 diabetes, and she's witnessed firsthand how quickly medical bills can accumulate, leaving families feeling overwhelmed. The foundation collaborated with Undo Medical Debt, a national nonprofit that purchases medical debt in bulk at a fraction of the cost and then erases it. On average, just $1 donated can eliminate up to $100 in debt. Tiffany?
We love a conscious queen. Good job, Taylor. Be sure to watch The Breakdown with Brittany Noble on the Black Star Network Monday through Friday, every day at 12 p. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be right back after the break.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
How you doing? I'm Mark Curry, and you're watching the Black Star Network. That's why I got these glasses on, because that black star is bright.
All right, before we go, I want to share a few thoughts. This week, right here in the nation's capital, is the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner. This is when journalists who cover the White House dine and double air kiss with the politicos they cover. Now, you guys remember, of course, when President Obama would take the podium and rib journalists and other people in the room, like in 2011 when he pretty much obliterated Donald Trump for questioning his birth certificate. But he would also defend the Fourth Estate and highlight the importance of journalism. Well, that was all brought to a screeching halt when the MAGA dunce Donald Trump took a giant dump on the First Amendment. So it comes as no surprise that these legacy media outlets will welcome with open arms the maniacal MAGA madmen to their dinner tables this weekend. This Saturday, the cult leader himself, Donald Trump, who coined the phrase fake news and routinely called the press the enemy of the people, will attend what we journalists call the Nerd Prom. Now, there's typically a comedian at the dinner, but this year, the draft-dodging, bone spur-claiming commander-in-chief will play that role. And I will not be surprised when the mostly white room applauds his presence. Many of these legacy media companies are actually hosting blatantly anti-press officials at their tables. You got SecDef Pete Hegseth and White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, who's widely regarded as a white nationalist. He'll be in attendance. David Ellison, the CEO of CBS News' parent company, is even holding a separate pre-dinner to honor Trump. Paramount, the parent of CBS News, will reportedly have FCC chair Brendan Carr at their table. Carr, who has outright threatened the press from his post for not being more vocally supportive of their dictator in waiting. This is akin to inviting a pack of wolves to a chicken coop. And this, my friends, is precisely why I would never play that game. I've spent a multi-decade career in broadcast news. I've covered Capitol Hill and the White House and have watched in horror as white-run legacy media normalize racism, sexism, cruelty, lawlessness, stupidity, and violence. I've navigated a career that tried to force me to yield to their rules of being unbiased, being rooted in what's white and male. I bore witness and even fought against media outlets routinely resorting to weasel words and euphemisms and commentators' critiques to avoid declaring an indisputable truth in its own institutional voice. I saw rational thought be presented on equal footing with irrational cult members. I gawked at media narratives that paved the way for the absolutely frightening erosion of society as we once knew it. No, I have no intention of ever playing in that space. I show up in spaces that ask of me to swallow my intellect, and instead, I proudly choose to be impolite to those who advocate such policies. When I hosted my own show, or when I'm a guest on other people's shows, I watch people swallow their own integrity in service to these same corporations that are paving the way for an incompetent failed businessman turned reality TV star turned president to crumble this version of democracy. And I am to think that maybe if I do the same, they might one day let me host the Today Show and polite cooking segments and offer up the best holiday deals. As a Black woman, in that order, that is not what I ever set out to do. When I venture back into the bowels of cable news, attempting to engage in thoughtful discourse with unthoughtful people on panels, I am impolite. When I sit across from people espousing hideous beliefs, spitting in the face not just of democracy, but of humanity, I am impolite. If you're in my presence and uphold the belief systems of authoritarian regimes, please don't see me in the green room and think to tell me what you did over the weekend. Please know better than to turn to me during the commercial break and share with me your summer vacation plans. And when we're leaving set, let me spare you and proactively tell you I don't give a damn where your oldest is thinking of going to college. And shame on anyone who does that. And here's the little secret, you guys. Most all of them sit on sets and do that. They make small talk. They engage. I was on set when they asked Kevin Leary what he was planning to wear with the Oscars. Yet during the show, you're all up in arms. Because for some people, it's more performance than passion. Some people are there for likes and follows and just itching for that viral moment. That has never been my aim. I am routinely focused on informing the audience. I'm fine with disagreement. I thrive in a healthy exchange of ideas and ideology. But when the positions of my intellectual lessers are also rooted in my oppression and destruction, we're not opposing sides with differing opinions. We're just enemies. And I don't make small talk with MAGA clown clan cap wearing idiots who would sooner see us all perish. So while the incestuous Beltway press double air-kiss dictators and normalize the hateful chaos of the MAGA clan, this is your reminder that the dying landscape of legacy media is doing what it has always done. And as Black folks, we will do what we always do. Move in strategic silence when necessary, leave behind those who need to stay informed, and most importantly, yet again, we will survive their stupidity. I want to bring in my panel, Dr. Carr and Winkuni. I'm a little irritated and pissed off about this White House Correspondents' Dinner this weekend because it is idiotic, hypocritical, but also consistent with the Beltway press to do something like this. What are your thoughts? Cooney, I'll start with you, and then we'll go to Dr. Carr.
Well, Tiffany, I think you're right to be frustrated, but I decided a long time ago at the beginning of this presidency that I would stop being surprised by white supremacy doing what it does best. I think that we have to be mindful that this Trump presidency, this demagoguery has continued in a way that we can almost expect now. And so I suspect the White House Correspondents' Dinner will be no different from that. Unfortunately, they've continued to make sure that voices that will contest their ideologies won't be in the room. And, you know, that is where America teeters into fascism. And so it's a scary new reality that we live in. But I think, again, this is why it's particularly integral for Black people to continue to create and curate their own spaces like the Black Star Network, because we have to be the torchbearers of our own futures and tell our own stories. And that's why I'm happy to be here this evening.
And we are happy to have you here, and I'm so glad that you were able to join me. Dr. Carr, you've heard my frustrations so many times. I've texted you, I've called you, I've sat across from you and wanted to scream. You know, I do shows on CNN. When I had my show on MSNBC, there was so much frustration, like this effort to sanitize, you know, people who were in the Trump administration and treat them like it's normal, and it's infuriating. It's so infuriating to me. And of course, I support independent media, but with that comes its own challenges. And, you know, I know people have a lot of criticisms, but I just want to say the people who are, you know, I would argue lacking in integrity, they appear all across every network. It's not any show in particular. They are across every network. And it just makes me want to pull my hair out, because when you're standing on the outside looking at that, and it's like, that's what y'all wanted. That is what you wanted on your screens. It feels disrespectful to us as a people after all we've done in this country.
I agree. And I would say this, I don't think it's a shameless plug at all for me to say this about Love Me, which I was honored that you shared pages with me and the manuscript with me to read and draft. I will tell you all, if you want to get an insider view on this very topic, in addition to everything else you're writing about, get that book. We're in the 2-week window, because what you talk about in terms of how you were so badly treated at MSN is instructive in seeing how people will sacrifice everything, sell their very souls, including people who look like us. Y'all need to get this book if you want to see this insider view. And I'm thinking about this because as you describe this nerd prom, we all know that you know a great number of the people who are going to be in that room. The people who will kiki in your face. I think you should get an award for not beating the shit out of Scott Jennings any day of the week. And also should get an award for eviscerating him before the world every time you sat on the stage with him, because this is a piece of a man, a little raggedy ass clay-eating hillbilly who, if he were not a white man, would not be anywhere near a public platform. And so your ability to maintain your calm in those spaces comes at a price that you write about and you talk about. But even then, we can't get to the real heart of how great the price is, because I don't know that you or anybody else could ever determine it. All that having been said, they're going to be there. They're going to kiki and cater to power. And whether it be Roy Wood Jr. a couple of years ago trying to navigate that straight, and of course being rewarded by the Jon Stewarts and the Comedy Centrals of the world as saying that maybe you're a little too smart for this space. Let's go find somebody else who will be a little bit more powerful. Whether it be you going through all the media platforms and the cable platforms, establishing and maintaining a standard of excellence that no one can question, and attracting between 4.5 and 5 million viewers a week, only to be told, oh, we want to maybe do something else, or better yet, not to be told anything, just to be ushered out the door. I think the choices that, Cooney, you've said that we have to make, and the choices that you've made, Tiffany, to be in whatever space you're in on your own terms, probably are going to end up with us being in spaces like this.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, speaking truth to power to white people is not why any of us came out of our mother's wombs. We are to be self-determining people. And all I can say finally is that our appreciation for you is I think, emblematic of how we have to appreciate ourselves. You don't change. And so that, including tonight with this conversation around domestic violence and this question of harm and how we solve it, this is why, as when Cooney said, the Black Star Network exists. And when it's not the Black Star Network and it's a white space, if you were going there this weekend, I suspect you would be exactly, I know you would be exactly who you are, and people just have to deal with it. Have you ever been to that? I'm assuming you've been to one.
Yeah, many times. I mean, when Obama was in office.
You got to tell us something about it. I mean,
well,
you have to be yourself in a room like that.
When it was the Bush administration, it was a different environment. You know, it was just it wasn't as cool an event. It was just journalists who covered the White House. And I remember Cedric the Entertainer was the comedian one year, and he went on this whole thing about Condoleezza Rice. And he was like, you know, there's Condi, and then there's Delisa. And Delisa coming out to her office like, B, I know you stole my stapler. Like, he was on this whole thing. Y'all know Delisa can fight. It was like, you know, some ribbing. And there was always a question of, well, should journalists be socializing with the people we cover? You know, which I always thought was a fair question. When Obama took office, then it became, I mean, the Oscars meet the Grammys, meet the Tony Awards. Everyone wanted to come, and you saw fewer journalists attending and more executives, more heads of networks, and they would fill their tables with, you know, Ben Affleck and, you know, these A-list Hollywood stars. And so the journalists who actually did the work, our invitations started getting smaller and smaller and smaller, but it was still such a beautiful time because Vanity Fair hosted a party and The Root would host a party. And then the year that Trump came into office, it was just very desolate. He didn't attend. As you know, they weren't holding daily briefings back then. He was routinely insulting members of the press. And it just took on a different meaning. So it's quite baffling now to see that he will be in that room with people who he insults on a damn near daily basis. And I can tell you right now, when he comes, people will applaud. They're going to stand for him. They're going to applaud. Some of it is out of the respect for the office that the president doesn't even respect. Some of it's out of routine, but some of it is just a constant denial of what we are witnessing. You know, as Black folks, we ain't in denial about it, but we look at them like, man, you guys just don't get it. They have normalized the chaos until calm seems eerie. And they really feel like, you know, oh, we ignored this whole MAGA movement. You know, MAGA's so unoriginal, they can't even come up with their own challenges. You know, they made themselves victims. You know, they can't even come up. You know, we had Black Lives Matter, then it was All Lives Matter. You know, we had woke, and then they turned it into like a bad thing. It's like, y'all can't even live on any level without us culturally. Like, everything we do, they some biters, you know, and try to warp it into something. So I'm so disgusted by it, Dr. Carr. Greg. I'm so disgusted by it, Greg. This is the only time I'll call you Greg. Yeah, Dr. I'm just really, honestly, it makes me want to vomit. And thank you for talking about the book because, you know, I thought it important. But again, that wasn't what the whole role, because whether you were in a newsroom or you were an associate in retail or you're an attorney showing up to a practice, you're a judge sitting on the bench, you're a doctor showing up to a hospital, we all confront those same systems of white supremacy in our roles at work. And so I wrote the book in sections, our labor, our land, and our love. And it just feels like this conflation of these three things in the lives of Black women right now are suffocating us. And so I revisit it. You know, I thank you for letting me shameless plug my book. And just to your point, Dr. Carr, I want to thank Roland Martin for creating this space for us to even have this conversation. I will be on book tour starting May 4th in Brooklyn with The View's Sunny Hostin. Sunny, who's fighting the good fight, so shout out to her. I'll be in Atlanta with Michael Harriot and Keisha Lance Bottoms. I'll be in Dallas with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. I'll be in Chicago with Jay Ivey. I'm all over the place. So you can find out more about my book tour at TiffanyDcross.com. Look up the Love Me book tour. I'll be here in D.C. with Joy Reid and with Dr. Carr. He is going to be on my book tour with me as soon as we settle on a date. But I don't want to hog the whole rest of the show with my book, but it is available right now for pre-sale. It comes out May 5th. Pre-sales did so well, the publisher moved the date up to May 4th, so you can get this book today, and it will be in your box. Get the hardcover because the cover is it's meant to be decoration. Thank you, Dr. Carr. I see you nodding. Thank you. Dr. Carr, Wikuni, before we go, any final thoughts? I feel like I hogged that whole last segment, but I'm so full of rage right now. I just wanted to get that part out.
Tiffany, I can't wait to read the book. It's been a pleasure to meet you, albeit virtually, and just always exciting. And you spoke a lot about Dr. Carr. I got to speak on him too. I was under his tutelage at Howard University, and what y'all see here, I have to, credit to the great Dr. Greg Carr. So, I'm just thankful. I'm thankful to be able to share space with the folks that mentored me and grew me up. And so it's an honor to be able to share space in this way. And Tiffany, it's a pleasure to spend time with you this evening. So just really happy to be able to be here with the both of you.
Thank you. There's never too much Dr. Carr love on my watch. Dr. Carr, we just love you and thank you. We will see you.
I love you too. Yes. Do that thing. Is that how you do? No, I just do it like this. This is how the old school.
Okay, well, we'll do it like this. I don't want to hit my mic. The director's going to kill me. But yes, love. I also want to thank the staff here at Roland Martin Studios. It's a very elaborate space that he has here. He has a well-qualified director, supervising producer, coordinating producers, and a whole team of folks behind the scenes that you don't always get to meet. You may hear Roland, yelling a command or something, but they're hardworking people here who made it so easy for me to fill in tonight. So thank you all for your support, and your support is critical to what Roland does in creating this space. So you can keep supporting via credit card, Cash App, or Stripe code in the bottom left-hand corner. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo's RM Unfiltered, Zelle's at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, and if you're old school, you can send checks, money orders payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 200370196. Candace Kelly will be back with you all tomorrow. Roland, a happy anniversary to you and your wife, wherever you are. And again, just want to give a sincere, heartfelt thanks to all the folks here who make Roland Martin Studios function and run swimmingly and smoothly like it did tonight. And thank you, of course, to my amazing panel, Dr. Greg Carr and Wikuni Seance. I hope to meet you in person very soon. All right, we'll see you next time.